Welcome to Facebook Live, the school edition. I'm Renee Summerhour. It's time for the kids to head back to school, well, in a different way. While some are at private schools have already started back in the classroom, CCSD students will be distance learning online starting August 24th, which is Monday. And we know you have a lot of questions, and we're here to provide as many answers as possible. So this week's topics will include the CCSD Comprehensive Back to School Family Guide. We'll take a look at what it entails and the help it's providing students and parents with technology, academic, and emotional support. In private schools, well, most have started this week, but what is their plan to keep kids safe? We'll speak with our education reporter about how they plan to educate this fall. Also, Clark County is offering 13 facilities across the Las Vegas Valley where young children will have access to distance learning opportunities, but we'll also look at how it's helping working parents who can't stay home for distance learning. And finally, CCSD's superintendent is giving us his final words of encouragement to parents, teachers, and school officials before they head back to school. Well, for CCSD students, school officially again starts August 24th. Students will be starting the school year entirely through distance learning. And the school district put out a thorough and comprehensive back-to-school family guide that breaks down how you can prepare for the upcoming school year.
This robust 30-page document lays out how CCSD will move forward with distance learning. It goes over everything from access to technology, meal distribution, scheduling, and the responsibility between parents and teachers.
I think parents are delighted to see everything in one place for the most part. One of the things that they've really said is helpful is that there's now a central line and a central website to access if they need a Chromebook or a hotspot. It's connecting kidsnv.com. If you need a Chromebook or a hotspot, you can log on to this and tell the district directly in order to get some help.
Depending on the needs of individual students, the digital guide lays out how there will be time allocated for real-time learning or independent learning. Comprehensive schedules and weekly instruction guides will be provided to families by their school. The guideline also gives you access to resources for students with disabilities and other special needs, a topic for parents with special needs children that they're still concerned about.
They were actually out protesting yesterday because they feel that their specific concerns haven't been addressed either in board meetings or in presentations or in this back to school guide so much.
And with all these changes, the district is also offering much needed academic and emotional training opportunities for parents.
Now, again, we saw earlier this week, Clark County district campuses are furiously distributing thousands of Chromebooks to students. CCSD is working to acquire approximately 76,000 additional Chromebooks to reach a 1-to-1 student-to-device ratio and retain an adequate inventory for replacement during the school year, according to school officials. Each CCSD school is getting in touch with families to access technology needs and arrange for distribution of Chromebooks or other devices for those students without one. And as far as the meal distribution plan for distance learning, the guide list has a few things to look forward to. Times will align with distance learning schedules. Each school and pickup times for each individual school must be checked online at Clark County School District menus. Now note, students do not need to be with their parents or guardian to pick up the meals, and parents and guardians do not need to be with their children or have them with them to pick up the meals. Students, parents, guardians are able to arrive at any school campus to pick up their bagged breakfast and lunch meals. It is preferred that they go to the school they are enrolled in. Now, parents with students attending multiple schools have the flexibility of picking up the meals at one location of their choice. Students and parents alike must wear face coverings to gain access into the cafeteria location to receive those meals. And students and guardians must also have the following information available to verify, such as the student ID card, the ID number or name or enrollment information. Meals will consist of breakfast and lunch, and the instructions for proper storage and heating will also be given to parents. For more information, including special diets and answers to frequently asked questions, please visit CCSD Food Service Department. Now, to continue the conversation we had with RJ education reporter Alexandra Appleton, she tells us more about what private schools are doing to prepare teachers and parents on how they're going to gear up for the school year as well. Take a look.
And the other thing I wanted to discuss was private schools. Some actually started this week, the beginning of this week, and officially kind of kick things off on the 24th, Monday. But do these private or charter schools who are doing in-person instruction, do they too have a similar plan laid out for the school year?
Sure. One school I visited at the beginning of the week was New Horizons Academy, which does have its 19-point reopening plan available on its website. So because it's in-person learning, there's more opportunities at that point for parents to interact directly with school staff. So probably it's not laid out exactly like this, because there tend to be smaller schools and they are in person. So I imagine that there's more opportunities for staff and parents to discuss in person. Whereas CCSD, being a large school district trying to reopen full-time distance, they're just trying to create a central repository of information as best as they can for these frequently asked questions that come up from parents. Teachers, as you know, have their own sort of setup in terms of getting comfortable with Canvas, and whether or not that's working kind of depends on the teacher. I'd say some teachers are pretty happy with the modules they're doing to learn how to use Canvas as a classroom management tool. And I'd say there are others who would like more training.
Based on what you've seen, who you've spoken to, both private and public, do you think, this is the first time we're having to do something like this at this scale. What's the overall feeling of the beginning of the school year? Are people scared, anxious, or are people actually excited to step into something new?
Sure. I think the overall feeling is nervousness at this point. It's still pretty early in the process. A few schools have given out their schedules and parents are trying to adjust to this idea that they're going to have their students, available for in-person instruction for basically 6 hours per day with breaks in between. But it's going to be very different than just sending them off for the day. It's going to be, well, how am I supposed to keep my kid focused for that long? And on the teacher side, how do I run my classroom for that long? How do I keep them engaged for that long?
Well, a small group of Clark County School District parents protested outside the district's administration office this week, saying that the plans to reopen school with distance learning don't adequately support students with special needs. Parents and advocates say they're concerned that families will be assured to accept any service from the district, even if it's not ultimately in the line of a free and appropriate public education that will serve those students. RJ videographer Michael Quine takes us there.
We are here to bring awareness to the fact that the school district does need to make some alterations to be in compliance with the law, or parents will begin to take legal action.
We're really concerned about the families in the special needs community that are getting ready to do their annual IEPs and them signing off on FAPE rights because they think that the district is doing something for them, and they're not. So under the guise of making reasonable accommodations, they're going to be asking families to reduce services, and they don't have to reduce services. So we really just have been reaching out to get parents to understand that if they're being forced to sign these documents, to sign them that they don't agree, and just really that you don't have to just accept what they're offering and fight for your children.
Our children have rights, laws that protect them. CCSD knows it. They are not following them. Our children are entitled to FAPE, which is free, appropriate public education by the IDEA Act. We have voiced our opinions about the neglect in the special education. They need to figure out a way in how to implement all of these services to these children, because it is written in their IEPs.
I have 3 children with autism. All are high functioning and verbal. I think at the end of the day, we all want something different, and every single one of our children is unique and they need something different. But the fact that we can't even have these conversations with those who are providing those supports right now is really difficult.
My daughter she was born legally blind and profoundly deaf, and distance learning does not work for her. She can't see them signing to her. She can't hear them talking to her. So without having someone directly in front of her in order to communicate, there's no learning for her at a distance. It just does not work, period. We need Clark County School District to address this. They are leaving children behind.
Now, there will be a board meeting regarding this information and how parents feel about special education during this distance learning period. Be sure to go to our website, reviewjournal.com, as we continue to update on that story. Well, whether it's in the classroom or learning virtually from home, parents need to set up their children for a successful year physically, socially, and emotionally. Joining us now live via Skype, Deborah Gilboa, MD, board certified family physician and Kleenex brand child wellness expert, as well as a mother of 4. She is offering us some tips today to help families prepare for the upcoming school year. Doctor, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Renee.
So some of the questions I think that we all have and parents need to be asked, teachers as well, on how to kind of implement these back to school routines. So give us a breakdown or what are some necessary routines that parents and teachers need to get kids back in?
Often when we think about routines, we think about doing the same thing at the same time in the same ways or places. And this year isn't going to lend itself to that. So some of the ways that we can help kids handle the disruption and the uncertainty is by giving them some structure that doesn't change no matter what they're doing. Meaning, if you have something as simple as a little goodbye ritual in the morning before the school day starts when your child was going off to school, do that each morning, whether they're going off to school or whether they're going to a screen for school. And if you have a child who packs lunch every day, then have a packed lunch, whether it's at school, at their desk, or in a cafeteria, or outside, or at your kitchen table. Giving kids certain anchor moments throughout the day that can be the same whether they're doing distance learning or going to school will really help them to feel more connected and more calm, because they may experience this year every situation a couple of times.
Yeah, and I imagine this year not only being different, but a little stressful. They can't really interact with their friends the way they wanted to this summer. I know a lot of children are really happy to be back in school, but it's not going to be the way they really want to, especially because that interaction is not going to be there. So how can parents spot signs of stress in their kids? Because I think most times parents miss that, right?
Well, it's really obvious, like, oh, my child isn't sleeping or they're not eating, then it can be something we see pretty clearly. And a lot of parents know that when kids complain about a stomach ache or a headache or just not feeling well, that, in the absence of a fever, we might want to wonder what else is going on. But another thing that we can really keep in mind, and this is something we can learn from their teachers, education teaches that behavior is communication. So if your child is behaving in a way that does not seem right to you, don't first step in to correct them, although absolutely you should correct them. First, ask yourself, if I'm getting frustrated, can I also be curious? What's going on here? Is there something really bothering my child? Which doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it also helps us to help them when we can understand it.
Absolutely. And, giving your child a sense of control in some way does give them a sense of security, correct?
Absolutely. Some kids who are going back to school this year in person are really worried, actually, about their health or bringing coronavirus to people that they love at home. And so one of the things we can do when kids are worried is talk to them about the parts they can control. They can wash their hands more frequently. They can keep their mask on, stay 6 feet away. They can grab that Kleenex and cover their cough or their sneeze and then throw it away and wash their hands. So when kids feel overwhelmed, we help them by focusing on the things that they can do to help themselves.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. I mean, with COVID-19, we have flu season that comes towards the end of the year with school starting and everything. So is there modeling hygiene routines that you can give parents other than the, wearing the mask, and also allowing their children to say, look, you're going to be in the classroom, you're going to have to wear this mask, respect the rules and regs of the school. But how can kids get into that routine now? Because a lot of times they're not always washing their hands and covering their mouths.
Anybody who's ever raised kids knows that no matter how many times you've taught your kids to wash their hands after they use the bathroom or brush their teeth twice a day, you still have to check up on them because they'll let it go sometimes if they think they can. So one of the things you can do is make it a little bit more fun if you've got an elementary school age child by asking them, hey, sing your song while you wash your hands loud enough that I can hear it. Or if you've got middle school and high school age students, you can talk to them about what they're hearing, what they're worried about, and how they can actually encourage hygiene or mask wearing or social distancing among their peers where they have some influence.
I know it probably doesn't look very cool, but with all these different masks coming out, it could actually turn into something fun and fashionable if they look at it that way. One more question I have for you, we will be discussing this next week as far as the parents' point of view, but, a lot of parents say, I'm not a teacher. I don't know how I'm going to do this. It's stressing them out because there's so many things kids are learning in school that we didn't really tackle when we were in school. So what routine or advice can you give parents right now during this special time?
If you can, think of yourself as a supervisor, but not the teacher. Meaning you're supervising that your child has a place that they can do their work, has enough structure around them, they have the materials that they need, and that you're making sure that they're doing their best at their tasks, which is really different than you having to teach them the material. Just like if you had a child that was struggling with the content in homework, you might ask them to reach out to their teacher, or you might reach out to their teacher. Consider yourself an assistant maybe, but you aren't the educator, and it would be unreasonable to ask you to pick up the years of training and experience you would need to do that well now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Deborah Gilboa, MD, board certified family physician and Kleenex brand child wellness. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your advice.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Well, Clark County is offering 13 facilities across the Las Vegas Valley where young children will have access to distance learning until school is fully reopened. The county's program is called School Days, and it's designed for working parents with children ages 5 through 12 years old and is set to include educational time, games, arts, crafts, sports, and more. Take a look.
As Clark County schools prepare for the 2020-2021 school year on August 24th amid the coronavirus pandemic, Southern Nevada parents feel like they don't have many options. For some, like at GV Christian Center, that means allowing their children to go to school in person. For others, distance learning. The Clark County School Board unanimously voted in July to approve a full-time return to distance learning. Over the weekend, though, campuses furiously distributing thousands of Chromebooks to students as they prepare to resume distance learning August 24th. But if both options are not accessible for working parents, then what?
Traditionally, it is basically day camp.
Desert Breeze Recreation Center, along with 13 other rec centers, are opening their doors for working parents under the new program, School Days.
We saw that there was a need for childcare, per se. For working parents, you need somewhere for your kids to go.
Designed for students between 5 and 12, it will be open Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Parents can sign up at clarkcountynv.gov/parks.
It'll be similar to summer camp. We'll provide recreational opportunities, arts and crafts, sports, along with opportunities for them to do their schoolwork throughout the day.
Mr. Kelly says they are not teachers, but give the children the distance learning time they need while they're there.
The average elementary school kid will have up to 120 minutes that they're required to complete during the day. With us, they may get 60 of those.
Social distancing and health and safety precautions will also be heavily enforced.
Everybody will go through a health screening. You'll get asked 3 questions prior to entering the facility. Chronic hand washing throughout the day, chronic hand sanitizing of the materials that are being used.
They also ask parents to pack their child's lunch, snacks, and a mask they feel comfortable wearing all day.
So just asking parents to provide them with a mask and having the understanding that, hey, you're in a public facility, just like when we go to the grocery store, listen to these folks, and we should be good to go.
And the cost?
So the program is $100 per week. There's nowhere else in town that you can probably get a program of this magnitude for that price.
Now, with the flu season starting around September, this will be a season unlike any other. The convergence of the flu and COVID-19 sounds a bit scary for some, but what effect could it have on the current pandemic, especially because children are more susceptible to the flu than COVID-19? Earlier this week, I spoke with RJ Health reporter Mary Hines and Dr. Brian Labus with UNLV about the potential impact of the convergence and the school year.
With all of these things happening, it seems like the fear for the flu would kind of heighten, right? Because a lot of people compare this to the flu. The flu is worse. More people die of the flu than COVID. But now that school's going to be back in session in some capacity, It doesn't seem like that might be an issue this year because distance learning is going to be a big thing here.
And in fact, more people are dying of COVID than die of the flu, but flu does tend to affect children more than COVID does. And one of the points made in my story is, with virtual learning, again, there could be less flu because of that, because the kids aren't in school spreading the flu.
The virtual learning that we're talking about is taking place in Southern Nevada over the first 3 months of the school year, which is before flu season really hits us. We typically don't see flu numbers start to increase till after Thanksgiving or so. And really up until the end of the year, the numbers tend to be pretty low. Once everybody comes back after Christmas break is when we see flu season start to take off, usually peaking in late February. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens this year, but we don't expect to see it as soon as they go back to school. We normally don't see that. Even an early flu season doesn't really start then. Early flu seasons tend to be starting after Halloween or something like that. So right now, saying that everything's going to be virtual learning is great, but it won't have that much of an impact on flu season. What happens in January, February, or March, that's what's really going to affect flu season. And that, for an epidemiologist, is going to be a fascinating thing to look at. Because like Mary said, the behaviors change, and those behaviors also prevent transmission of flu. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with this upcoming flu season.
Interesting indeed. Thank you for that. Well, before we wrap up this Facebook Live, CCSD Superintendent Dr. Jesus Jara has a message for parents and teachers and students about the upcoming school year. Take a listen.
Listen, we can't wait to see all our kids, whether it's virtually on the phone, and I think that is the exciting piece, that it's going to be a great way. Last year when we closed school and graduations, there was a little bit of anxiety, but I talked to our high school principals. They say they learn, and they kind of like some of these smaller graduation ceremonies. So we may learn a lot of great things as we open up that we'll continue to implement as we move forward. So flexibility, parents, thank you for counting on us, and we're going to be there to help your kids.
Thank you for that. Well, that'll do it for the RJ Education Guide live edition here. I'm Renee Summerhour. Join us next week where we cover how the first week of school went and how parents are feeling and adjusting to this new normal. Also, don't forget to download our free RJ mobile app for alerts straight to your phone. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, I'm Renee Summerhour. You guys have a good day and good luck come Monday.